It was a quiet evening on planet Oran 7. The sky was purple, with 2 moons slowly rising above the hills. The air was cool, and the wind moved gently through the golden fields of wheat. Far away from the cities, a lonely farmer named Dallin lived. In a small wooden house. He had no family, no neighbors, only a few animals and a simple life. He loved peace, and his days were always the same: work in the morning, rest at night. But that evening was different. Dallin was feeding his animals when he heard something unusual. It was a low, deep sound, like a growl, but softer. He stopped moving. His dog Leo growled and ran back into the house. That never happened before. Dallin picked up his flashlight and slowly walked toward the barn. The sound came again. It was coming from the shadows behind the wheat field. Dallin's heart began to beat faster. He moved carefully, step by step. The light from his flashlight was shaking in his hand. Then, suddenly, he saw something, 2 glowing eyes, bright yellow. Watching him, Dallin froze. In the dim light, he saw a large shape. It was not a cow, not a wild animal either. It looked like a dragon. A real living dragon. It had long wings, folded behind its back. Its skin was dark silver, with patterns like metal. Its tail was thick and strong, moving slowly like a snake. But it was not roaring, not attacking. It was just sitting there. Quietly, the dragon looked tired, weak, hungry. Dallin took a step back. His first thought was to run. But then, he saw something strange. The dragon was not growling anymore. It made a soft sound, almost like a cry. It looked down at the ground, then at Dallin, and then at the small bag of bread in his hand. Dallin blinked. "You want food?" The creature didn't move, but its eyes followed the bread, very slowly. Dallin took out a piece of old bread and placed it on the ground. Then he stepped back. The dragon sniffed it, carefully. Then very gently, it took the bread with its long claws and ate it. No fire, no growling, just quiet chewing. Dallin stared in shock. "A dragon eats bread?" He whispered. The creature looked at him again, then turned and walked back into the darkness behind the barn, silent, like a shadow. Dallin stood there for a long time, not moving. His hands were shaking. His mind was full of questions. What was that? Why didn't it attack me? Where did it come from? That night, Dallin could not sleep. He sat near the window with his flashlight, watching the fields. But the dragon didn't come back. The next morning, Dallin woke up early and went to the barn. He checked the ground where he left the bread. There were big claw marks in the dirt. Very big. He touched them. They were real. He didn't tell anyone. Who would believe him? A dragon? Eating bread? On a farm? But Dallin felt something in his heart. A strange feeling. Not fear, but curiosity. That evening, he kept another piece of bread on the same spot. And, just like before, as the sun went down, the creature returned. This time, it came out of the shadows slowly. Dallin was waiting, but kept his distance. The dragon saw him and nodded. Just once. Like a human greeting. Then it sat down and ate the bread again. Quiet, calm. Dallin whispered, "Who are you?" The dragon didn't answer. Of course not. But its eyes, they looked different. Almost sad. Almost human. Dallin stayed quiet and watched until it finished eating. Then, again, it disappeared into the night. By the 3rd day, it became a habit. Each evening, Dallin left bread near the barn. Each night, the dragon came. And each time, it looked at him with those strange, knowing eyes. He started talking to it. Just small things. "How was your day? You don't talk much, huh? You don't act like a monster." The dragon never spoke. But it listened. One evening, Dallin sat a little closer. The dragon didn't move. It allowed him to sit. He noticed the creature was breathing slowly, as if it was tired, or hiding something. Something about this dragon was not normal. It was not wild, not dangerous. It was lost. Dallin looked at the sky, where the stars were shining bright. "What are you really?" he whispered. Later that night, when Dallin was sleeping, he woke up suddenly. He thought he heard a voice, a soft voice. Not from outside, but inside his mind. One word: help. He sat up, sweating. No one was there, only the night. And the silence. The dragon came again, but this time, it didn't go straight to the bread. It stood still at the edge of the wheat field, half covered in shadow, watching Dallin with calm, glowing eyes. The moonlight touched its silver skin, and for a moment, it looked like a statue, strong, quiet, and strangely beautiful. Dallin didn't move. He just stood near the barn, holding the warm bread in both hands. He had spent the entire day thinking about what this creature was, thinking about why it kept coming back, and deep inside, one question kept rising again and again. Why? Emmy? Why did a dragon choose to trust a simple farmer? Dallin slowly placed the bread on a flat rock and took 3 steps back. The same routine, the same silence, but something was different tonight. The dragon walked forward, slow and careful, and then, it didn't eat. It sat, facing Dallin, its wings folded neatly, its head tilted slightly, like it was waiting for something. Dallin frowned. "You're not hungry today?" The creature blinked once, then looked at the stars, the same stars Dallin had watched his whole life. Without knowing why, Dallin sat down on the cold ground across from it. Not too close, but close enough to see the light in its eyes. He spoke softly. "You're not from here, are you?" The dragon didn't answer, but its chest rose and fell slowly. Like a deep sigh. Hours passed. They just sat, farmer and beast, both silent, both watching the sky. Some kind of invisible thread was forming between them. Not of words, but of something else. A bond, a silent bond. Over the next few nights, the dragon came earlier. It started waiting near the edge of the barn before Dallin even brought the bread. It followed him, gently, around the fields. Never too close, never too far. Dallin began talking more, about his past, about the war he survived, about how he lost his family to sickness. He didn't know why he was telling all this to a creature that never replied, but it felt right. It felt like someone was listening. One night, something unexpected happened. Dallin was returning from the river, carrying buckets of water, when he slipped and fell hard on the rocky path. He cried out in pain. His leg was bleeding, and one arm felt broken. Darkness filled the trees. Wolves howled nearby. And then he heard a roar, a deep, echoing roar that shook the leaves. The dragon came crashing through the trees, faster than ever before. Its wings sliced the air. Its eyes were blazing gold. It stood over Dallin like a shield, growling at the shadows, protecting him. The wolves backed away. The forest went silent. Then the dragon turned, and without warning, it leaned down and gently touched Dallin's bleeding leg with its glowing claw. A soft blue light flowed from it. Warm, peaceful, healing. In seconds, the pain faded. The wound was gone. Dallin looked at his leg, then at the dragon. His mouth fell open. "You healed me." The dragon didn't move, didn't explain, but Dallin understood. Something in that moment. This was not just a creature. It was something more. Something powerful and kind. And maybe very alone. Later, as they sat together near the barn again, Dallin asked one simple question. "Are you hiding from someone?" The dragon looked away. Its wings tightened. Its breathing changed, deeper, heavier. Then it closed its eyes. And for a single second, Dallin saw something impossible. A flash in the dragon's eyes, an image, a boy, dressed in glowing armor, running through fire, then a metal prison, a strange machine, a lab. And finally, the silver Dragon breaking out of a pod, flying away into space. The vision vanished as quickly as it came. Dallin gasped. He stared at the dragon, now silent again. What was that? The creature didn't answer, but the bond between them was no longer silent. It was real. It was growing. And somewhere deep inside, Dallin knew this wasn't just a visitor. This was a secret the galaxy had forgotten. And somehow, it had chosen him. That night, Dallin left his door unlocked for the first time. And just before sunrise, when he opened his eyes, he saw a shadow outside his window. Not of the dragon, but of something else. Tall, metallic, watching. And then, gone. The sky was too quiet. Too perfect. Had been a week since Dallin first fed the dragon. And now, every night, Flint, the name Dallin had given him, came like clockwork. Silent, powerful, and watching. Their bond had grown strong. Dallin even built a wooden shelter near the barn, where Flint could rest without being seen. But this night, the stars didn't feel friendly. There were no crickets, no night breeze. Even the windmills had stopped turning. Something was wrong. Dallin stood on his roof, scanning the sky with his old binoculars. Just habit. Just curiosity. Then he saw it. A small dot of red light. Blinking. It was too high to be a bird, too quiet to be a plane. It hovered for a moment, then moved in a slow circle above his land. That's not normal, Dallin whispered. Red light blinked twice, and then vanished. He didn't tell Flint. Not yet, but deep inside, fear had returned. Not the fear of the dragon, the fear of who might be looking for him. That night, Dallin couldn't sleep. He kept checking the sky, the fields, the barn. And around midnight, he heard something new. A whisper, not with his ears, but inside his mind, a soft alien voice. Like distant echoes underwater. It repeated the same word, again and again. Target. Found. Dallin sat up in bed, heart pounding. The room felt colder than before. The lights flickered for a second. He looked out the window. The wheat field was glowing faintly, not from moonlight, but from above. Something was scanning his land. In the morning, everything looked normal again. Birds sang. Cows wandered. The sun rose gently over the hills, but near the edge of the field, Dallin found something strange. A burn mark in the shape of a perfect circle. Dead grass. Worn soil. At the center of the circle was a tiny black object, smooth like glass, humming quietly. Dallin picked it up with shaking fingers. It pulsed with light. Then suddenly, it cracked open and projected a short message in the air. Level 9. Asset detected. Location marked. Prepare extraction. Dallin dropped it. He looked around. Nothing moved, but he knew now. Flint was being hunted. He ran to the barn. Flint was there, sleeping peacefully under the straw roof. His wings were folded. In his tail curled like a dog's. He looked calm. Dallin crouched next to him. "Hey," he said softly. "Wake up. We have a problem." The dragon opened one eye, golden, sharp, but not afraid. Dallin held up the broken tracker. "They found you." Flint stared at it, then closed his eyes for a moment, like he already knew. Then he stood up. And did something he had never done before. He reached out his claw and touched Dallin's forehead gently. And Dallin saw it again, a vision, this time longer, clearer, a great starship, chains, scientists with robotic arms. Flint, or someone like him, locked in a glowing cage. He saw a control panel. Project Chimera, Phase 7, Transformation Test. He saw Flint's body changing, forced into a dragon shape by needles, wires, and machines. He saw Flint break free, escape, fly across space, crash on Oran-7. The vision ended with a red logo, Xyrix Corp. Control through creation. Dallin stumbled back. His voice was barely a whisper. "You're not just a creature. You were made. You were human?" Flint's eyes turned softer, sad. Then he looked up and let out a deep, low growl that echoed across the hills. That evening, Dallin went to the local scrapyard, where his old friend Juno, a retired ship mechanic, lived alone with rusted parts and broken satellites. He showed him the tracker. Juno's face turned pale. This belongs to Xerox Corp. I haven't seen one of these since the war. It's alien tech, yes, but it's also illegal. He paused. Dallin, whatever you're hiding, it's not a pet. This thing might be royalty or a weapon. Or both. Dallin stayed quiet. Then Juno said something strange. Tell it to stay hidden. Xerox doesn't just hunt. They erase. That night, Dallin returned home and found Flint already waiting, standing outside the barn, looking at the sky. In the distance, a sharp humming sound filled the air. Dallin looked up. 3 black dots were flying across the stars, silent, fast. Ships. Scouting. Searching. Coming closer, he whispered. We don't have much time. Flint walked toward Dallin slowly. Then for the first time, he opened his mouth and spoke. His voice was deep, broken, but clear. I am not what they made me. Then he turned his head toward the sky, and his eyes burned like fire. The rain fell without sound, not drops, but lines, thin streaks of silver that sliced the sky like threads from another world. Dallin stood in the field, soaked, staring at the spot where the sky had cracked open the night before. 3 black ships had passed overhead. Now they were gone, but the feeling they left behind wasn't. Something had changed. Flint had not moved since morning. He sat behind the barn, wings folded tight, tail coiled like a question mark. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, just stared at the hills. Dallin brought warm bread, a blanket, and water. But Flint didn't touch anything. Finally, Dallin sat beside him in the mud. I saw the ships too, he said softly. They're close. Flint blinked slowly. His voice came like gravel scraping metal. They know I'm here. Dallin reached into his coat and pulled out the broken tracker he had found in the field. He held it out. This sent them your location. It had a code inside. I gave it to an old friend to study. He paused. He said something strange. Flint didn't move. Dallin continued, voice lower now. He said, you might be royalty. Flint closed his eyes. Slowly, painfully. Then, without a word, he reached forward and touched the tracker with one sharp claw. It lit up. Not red, but white. A hologram burst from it, broken, flickering, like a ghost struggling to speak. A voice echoed. Security key activated. Welcome, Kale of House Virion. Dallin's eyes widened. Kale. That's your real name? The dragon. No, the being, nodded once, and then the hologram continued. A new image appeared. A young boy, about 14, with silver hair and glowing eyes, wearing a dark uniform, surrounded by older men in lab coats. Subject Kale, final heir of Virion system. Escaped Xerox containment 5 years ago. Status, mutated. The next clip showed Kale screaming inside a capsule, his skin changing, bones shifting, a metal collar around his neck. Then, form locked, Alpha class Chimera. Memory fractured, intelligence retained. Warning, subject carries royal code signature. Protect or terminate as needed. The hologram vanished. The tracker exploded into dust. Silence. Only rain. Dallin sat frozen, his mouth dry. You're not just running, he whispered. You were changed, turned into this. Flint, Kale, looked away. Ashamed. But Dallin stepped closer. You saved me. You healed me. You protect me every night. He pointed at Kale's chest. You're still you. Kale raised his head slowly. And then, for the first time since arriving, he smiled, not wide, not perfect, but soft. Human. That night, Dallin did something he never thought he would. He opened the old underground bunker below his farm, built long ago for war. He cleared the dust, lit the lamps, and led Cale inside. "You'll be safe here," he said. "No more hiding in the cold." Cale touched the old metal walls gently, as if they reminded him of something. Then he looked at Dallin and spoke more clearly than ever before. "They fear what I remember." Over the next days, Cale began to change, not just his words, but his body. Every time he slept, his scales softened, his wings grew thinner, his voice grew stronger. Something inside him was healing, or maybe returning. But peace never lasts long. On Oran-7. One evening, Dallin came home from town with supplies. As he approached the bunker, he saw something that made him freeze. Footprints, metal ones, heavy, deep. Not his, not Cale's. He dropped the bags and rushed inside. Cale was there, sitting still, holding a piece of his broken collar in his claws. Dallin whispered, "They were here." Cale nodded. "I felt them. Why didn't they attack?" Cale looked up. "They're waiting." "For what?" Cale's eyes narrowed. "For me to remember everything." Later that night, Cale stood outside the bunker, under the stars, his body glowing faintly. And then, without touching anything, he raised one claw toward the sky. A signal burst from it. Invisible, silent, but powerful. Across space, somewhere far away, a beacon lit up and answered. A ship turned its course. Coming to Oran-7. And on its black steel surface, the mark of Xyrex burned red. The wind on Oran-7 had changed. It now carried a pulse, not a sound, not a smell, but a deep, strange energy, as if the ground itself was waiting for something to rise. Cale stood in the middle of Dallin's wheat field. His silver scales shimmered under the twin moons. His wings hung low. His breathing was deep, steady, almost meditative. He wasn't just resting anymore. He was remembering. Dallin watched from the edge of the barn. He didn't speak. He knew something was happening, something sacred, something bigger than him, bigger than this quiet farm. Cale wasn't a visitor anymore. He was someone returning. For days now, the dragon had barely eaten. Instead, he sat in stillness, lost in flashes of forgotten images. Each day, a new word came to his mind. Chimera, betrayal, throne fire, father. And now, one word echoed louder than all the rest. Truth. That night, under a blood-red moon, Cale entered the underground bunker alone. He stepped toward the far wall and placed his claw over a steel plate. Dallin had never touched. To Dallin's shock, the wall responded. A hidden panel slid open. Inside, a glowing cube the size of a fist, humming softly, like it was breathing. Cale stared at it. Then spoke slowly. "Memory anchor. Hidden by my mother, before they took me." Dallin stepped forward, amazed. "You've been here before?" Cale nodded. "This was my family's land, long ago, before Xyrex came." He touched the cube, and it began to glow brighter. Then it exploded with light. Suddenly, the bunker filled with moving images, a silver castle floating above clouds. A tall man in royal armor, Cale's father, raising a sword of pure light. A young Cale running through crystal halls, laughing. Then, flames, screams, soldiers in black armor storming the castle. His mother placing the memory cube in a pod, her voice, "Hide among the stars. Become what they fear. And when the time is right, remember who you are." Cale fell to his knees. His breathing was heavy. His eyes burned bright. "I am not their experiment," he said. "I am not their weapon." He looked up at Dallin. "I am Cale Virian, heir to the throne light of Narration." Dallin didn't know what to say. A few weeks ago, he was just feeding bread to a beast. Now he stood beside a dragon who was once a prince turned into a weapon, Forgotten by history. And yet, still human on the inside. Dallin walked over and placed a hand gently on Kale's shoulder. I don't care what you are, he said. You're not alone now. Kale closed his eyes. And for the first time in years, he believed it. But the silence didn't last. The very next morning, the sun refused to rise. Thick clouds rolled in too fast. Unnaturally fast. The wind carried a low hum. A frequency that made the birds stop flying. Made the cows lay down. Made the ground tremble. Dallin rushed outside. He saw it before he heard it. A black tear in the sky. A portal opening. From it, a ship emerged. Massive, sharp, cruel in shape. And on its surface, the mark of Xerix burned like fire. Dallin ran to the bunker. Kale was already standing outside, eyes fixed on the sky. They found me, he said calmly. How did they open a portal? Dallin asked. Kale's voice was low, dark. They didn't. He pointed to his own chest. I did. Dallin stepped back, shocked. You called them? Kale nodded. I needed to know the truth. They're bringing it with them. As the ship descended, 3 figures stepped out, tall, armored, cold. One of them raised a voice that echoed like metal thunder. Subject Kale, you carry stolen blood. Return, or burn with the traitors who protect you. Kale looked at Dallin. Then stepped forward. No fear in his eyes. No more hiding. Kale opened his wings, stretched his claws, and his body began to shift. His scales cracked, his tail glowed, and from within, a light began to rise, not fire, but pure energy. His final words before the light exploded. I remember everything. Asterisk. The stars had gone missing. Clouds of ash-black smoke swirled across the sky like a second skin. The once golden wheat fields of Orin 7 looked burned, though no fire had touched them yet. Only one thing had changed. Xerix had arrived. The ship hovered above. Dallin's land like a beast without legs. It didn't land. It watched. Its surface reflected nothing, like a hole in the universe. Beneath it, 3 dark machines floated silently. Drones, alive, scanning every inch of ground, every heat signature, every breath. Inside the bunker, Kale sat with his eyes closed, not resting, remembering. Dallin loaded his old rifle, not because he believed it would help, but because it gave his shaking hand something to do. This was supposed to be a quiet life. He whispered. Kale opened his eyes. I should go, he said. Before they burn everything. Dallin shook his head. You leave, they win. Again. Kale's wings twitched. They're not here to kill me. Dallin looked up. Then why? Kale stood slowly. They want to finish what they started. Outside. The air grew heavier. Wind turned electric. Static danced through the wheat like fireflies without light. From the ship, a single voice echoed through hidden speakers. Kale Varian. Chimera Protocol. Reactivate. Kale staggered. Pain hit his chest like a punch from inside. Dallin ran to him. What's happening? Kale's voice trembled. They built a key inside me. Words that break my will. They're trying to take control. Return to primary form. Obey. His eyes flickered. His breathing grew sharp. His body began to shift, not by choice, but by code. Dallin grabbed his face. Look at me, you're not their weapon. Kale growled, not in anger, but in struggle. His voice broke through clenched teeth. Don't let me become it. In the distance, something rose from the ship. A Hunter-class Mech. 3. Stories tall, black armor. Red eyes, built for one purpose. Contain. Capture. Control. It walked with thunder. And as it stepped into the field, the wheat withered beneath its feet. Dallin stared. How do we fight that? Kale stood up straight. His scales burned gold. His wings unfolded, wider than before. We don't fight it, he said. We burn it. Suddenly, the sky cracked with sound. A roar that came from Kale's throat. Not human. Not dragon, something older. Something awakened that the clouds swirled above him. His body pulsed with memory, every cell now lit with the truth of what he was. Not a monster, not a weapon, but a king. Twisted and caged, now free. Kale rose into the sky, eyes blazing. He didn't wait. He attacked first, with a scream that split the air. He crashed into the mech, steel bent, sparks flew. The ground shook. The drone army activated. Dozens of red lights blinked on in the hills. They were everywhere. Watching, swarming, hunting. Dallin ran to the barn, grabbed his old distress beacon, and turned it on. It flashed red. This isn't just about Kale anymore, he muttered. They're here for the whole planet. In the sky, Kale and the mech clashed like gods. Fire, light, blood, roars. The battle lit up the valley like a second sun, and from the shadows, Zyrek's command watch. Their leader, a voice without a body, spoke through the ship. Initiate Phase Omega. If Kale remembers who he is, destroy him. A new missile bay opened. Inside, a weapon glowing blue, designed to erase memory. Forever. Kale fell to the earth with a scream. He hit the ground near Dallin, smoke rising from his body. He was shaking. They're going to erase me, he whispered. Erase everything I've become. Dallin crouched beside him. Then we don't let them. Kale looked into his eyes. Even if I forget, don't let them win. Dallin nodded, then turned to the sky. He lifted the beacon and aimed it toward the stars. High above the galaxy, a second signal blinked to life, one buried deep in an old royal satellite. Long forgotten. It responded to Dallin's beacon, and far away, in a distant nebula, an ancient ship lit up. Its hull marked with gold, its engines waking after 5 years, coming home. The first light of dawn cut through the smoky sky, painting the horizon in streaks of gold and red. The battle had left the fields scarred, broken wheat, smoldering earth, and silence heavy as stone. But Kale stood tall. No longer just a dragon. No longer just a weapon. He was something more. Far above the clouds. A ship unlike any other descended. Its silver hull gleamed with ancient power. Its engines thrummed with the song of forgotten stars. It was the Starboard, Kale's true home. Inside, the royal crew prepared for war. They had come to reclaim their lost prince. Back on Orin 7, Dallin watched Kale's glowing form. The light around him pulsed stronger. Kale's eyes burned with the fire of memory, not pain, not rage. Dallin, he said, voice steady and calm. Thank you. You saved me. Dallin smiled, though exhaustion weighed on him. You're more than a prince now. You're a leader. Suddenly, the ground trembled again. Zyrex's forces were regrouping. Stronger than before, Dallin grabbed his rifle. Kale spread his mighty wings, preparing to soar. We fight, Kale declared. But not as monsters, as kings. The battle was fierce. Kale and his royal crew struck with precision and fury. Dallin fought beside them, fearless. The skies lit with fire and energy blasts. The earth shook with the roar of machines and dragons. At the heart of the conflict, Kale faced Zyrex's leader, a shadowed figure, who had stolen his past and tried to break his soul. With a roar that echoed across galaxies, Kale unleashed his full power. Light and fire wrapped around him like armor. The two clashed in a storm of energy. In the final moment, Kale reached deep within himself. He remembered every lesson, every love, every loss. With a cry that split the silence, he defeated the shadow. Zyrex's control shattered. Their forces fled into the dark. When the dust settled, Kale looked to the stars. The Starborn's crew cheered. Dallin stepped forward. Kale smiled, eyes bright with hope. Let's rebuild together. The farmer and the prince, once strangers, now allies. Two souls bound by fate, ready to face the future. As the twin moons rose, Kale whispered, I am no longer hungry for bread. I hunger for justice, for peace. For home,